30 billion shillings go missing in 6 counties, and there's an audit that shows how Kajiado, Busia, Nyamira, Kakamega, Machakos and Homa Bay failed to account for money spent on various projects and contravene procurement laws. And on page 7 it gives the details of how that was. For instance, in Busia County, 882 million shillings was under or overspent. 43 million shillings was spent at the source. 661 million shillings was spent on projects that were not implemented. There was something else that I had seen, that was, which county was it? That was talking about 8.5 billion shillings that was spent for procurement of a laundry machine for a county. And I'm just wondering, this is a story, every other week we have a story about how resources are being utilized or misused in the counties. And I still want to ask the question, because I don't think I've asked this panel that question, that we're still talking about the financial statements of a few years back. And you are the Senate, and you strived as much as you could through the committee that was looking at the resources that are being spent in devolution. So how do we ensure that at the end of the day, the resources that have been allocated for the financial year 2018-19, how do we ensure that in real time we are able to tell whether they are doing the right thing at the right time?
There are a number of challenges. One is at the level of the county. As we've known, is that there was devolution of many other things other than the human resource component. And therefore, some of the governors started, like many presidents, thinking that they had the latitude of making decisions without the involvement of the law, procedure, and also regulations that are required. And that explains part of the wastage that we are seeing. Some of it is also outright theft, where people procure services that are not there, and therefore make themselves rich. The second issue has been in terms of delay, in terms of accounts, from the experience I have about Parliament, is that the Office of the Auditor General must have also been overburdened by trying to make sure that they have clean accounts to pass for purposes of Parliament discussing. And also Parliament, I think at some stage, for some reason, they did not seem to have the capacity or the time to discuss those audited accounts in good time, such that at times we are dealing with accounts of 2 or 3 years back, and yet we are pretending that we are dealing with the current accounts. That's why even at times, even the budget is benchmarked on the accounts of the previous year, and yet the accounts that have been audited may be 3 years ago. Therefore, it means devolution is not getting a fair share of the resources. But fundamentally is really failure of leadership, because in Kenya we've decided that when you get to a position or to an office, you just make yourself comfortable and you steal as much as you can and you go ahead. Because research that has been done in Africa is that there is no correlation between corruption and popularity of an individual. An individual can be as corrupt as anything, but he is going to be elected. And this is the irony of leadership, the irony of democracy in Africa. That's why you can see a lot of evidence that some of the MCAs, some of the individuals who are quack doctors or nurses, they went home and they were elected MCAs. Some people who had integrity issues at the level of the CS, they went home, they were either made senators or made governors, which means Kenyans are totally oblivious of what goes on. Finally, which is very fundamental, is that until Kenyans realize that the resources of the nation is my resource, as long as that disconnect is still there, that you see the resources of the Kenya government as if they belong to others and are not part of it, we are not likely to fight corruption sufficiently.
Mheshimiwa Martha, since 2003 we have had this system, IFMIS, Integrated Financial Management Information System, and it was intended to tame such of these situations that we have, to control how you utilize resources, to ensure that you only use money in accordance with the votes that they have been allocated. But 2 or 3 now, it's about 16 years, we still struggle with money that has gone to the wrong uses. I was looking for that, it is Nyamira County that spent 8.5 million shillings to purchase a laundry machine. I'm not saying that it cannot cost that much, but I'm just wondering, why are we not able to use this IFMIS system and the internal controls in our departments to ensure that resources are utilized in the right manner?
I think if you saw the governors recently, they actually called for a presser on IFMIS. They were actually saying it's not working because it is delaying the monies, it's not doing it in time. But the idea of IFMIS was good, until we also realized it can also be manipulated. I mean, in the NYS 1 and 2, it was purely manipulation of IFMIS, that you know, people could just steal money from the air, you know, by a click of a button, and 900 million is gone. So I think it has its pros and its cons in terms of review, but I still think it's a better system than what we used to have, the manual system. At least you can keep track.
You can track how money has been stolen.
You can keep track of how the resources have been disbursed. And that is why you can tell that by my signature, this amount was lost. That is why it was easy, even for the investigators, if they were really serious, to actually even nail the culprits that were in NYS 1, because it was on record. But the issue of stalled projects, I think if you look, when I was in the Senate in the 11th Parliament, we talked about it. We always excused the county government as being in the formative stages. We gave a lot of leeway last time, teething issues that never really ended. But I think this time, you cannot talk of teething issues. We really must put our act in order. And I think we must compare the model. Having been in both sides, I can compare the model of CDF right now and the county government funds. The way I can compare it, my predecessor had some projects that were started the last year and was told, you know, for election purposes, you'll tell people, if you don't elect me, I won't finish this one, or, you know, for whatever reason. But when I come into office, I will own those. Yes. I will own those projects. I will make sure they're completed. This first year, most of what I've been doing is finishing those projects because they are not personal. Even when I leave, they are not personal projects. But in most of the counties, if you look at how it is set up, you'll find that when a governor goes home, I won't touch that one. I want to start another one, parallel one, across there. That you started a dispensary, it's just a structure, nothing. You won't equip it. I think that is also something we must get out of the system as politicians, that it is not a personal project. If you find it incomplete, it is under your obligation to actually make sure it works. Otherwise, it is waste of money, it is waste of taxpayers' money. But in terms of corruption, Sam, I think I have said it before, it is not about the laws. We have enough laws to deal with corruption. In terms of seafond funds, in terms of upside down priorities, of course it's not a crime to choose to do a dry cleaning setup instead of buying a tractor or whatever it is. Every county has its own integrated plan, and I won't go into the details because each has their own priorities. But at least even if you choose to buy a wheelbarrow, don't make it 4,000 or 100,000. It must really be genuine. But the Auditor General's office also, I look at CDF accounts, they are audited promptly, I think every year. So we must also focus on the Auditor General's office, that every year we are saying we are adding them some amount of money for operationalization, for human resource, so that they can be able to churn out the report as soon as possible. Because it is very catastrophic that we use, even in terms of resource allocation, we use years, you know, 2-3 years before. It doesn't make sense, because in 1 year, a lot can change. So I hope we can also get the Auditor General to be accountable, to be able to give us these reports, not 3 years after. But immediately, so that if there are any remedies, if there are any arrests, if there are any investigations, they are started immediately. But when you start telling someone of 3 years ago, it even looks like news. People say, you look at the stadium, you say, I built it and it collapsed, now look at it, it's good now. You know, and you have allocated more money, and I'm not mentioning any county.
And Mheshimiwa Tande, as you respond, she has talked about the stalled projects, and I remember that, was it early this year or late last year? I think it was early this year, President Kenyatta was saying that no projects will be invested in until the ongoing projects have been completed.
Even Treasury has frozen, it's in the newspapers today.
Yes. So my question is it a possibility, because that's national government, is it a possibility that we can do that even with the county governments without appearing like the national government is interfering with the operations of the devolved units?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important, and I want to reiterate what my colleague has said. When I moved into office, I began by completing the projects that were initiated by my predecessor. So I think it's fundamental that even counties, you do not initiate new projects when the others are stalled. But I've been thinking about how our counties are working, and I've come to the conclusion that the reason why we will not to get it right yet in the counties is because of the dysfunctionality of the county assemblies. Because our county assemblies, as you know, are they have the mandate of oversighting the operations of the counties. And if you've seen what's happening in the recent past about how the county assemblies are fighting the ineffective, I doubt whether they are even capable of, their committees are capable of following up the various projects that their county governments are really initiating and oversighting them and ensuring that they are living up to the expectations of the budgets that are allocated to them and etc. So I think one of the things that we need to enhance as a government, as a people, is how do we make the county assemblies effective to ensure that they are involved in putting priority on key projects that the people need. If you go to some of these counties, you find that the entire budget for development is being spent on clearing paths and roads. Yet when you go to the hospitals, you find there are no facilities. Basic facilities like scanners do not exist in some of these county referral hospitals. So I think the biggest issue here is priority. How do we ensure that we have put priority on the critical issues? The other issue is on Auditor General. I must say that I am not satisfied with the Auditor General's actions on counties. And given that recently there's even a case in court where the Auditor General wants to sack one of his officers who was allegedly involved in corruption in one of these counties. He was being compromised, I think so, during the audit processes in the counties. And I think this is really time that we want to see action in the area of the audit of counties.
Right.
Because some of these issues we are discussing now are reports of 2014-2015 financial year, when now we should actually be talking about things that were done in the last financial year. So this is going to really going to help us. But I think going forward, we probably need to enhance the academic requirements for MCS going forward, because we are talking about billions of shillings, and we owe our people credible oversight reports.
I